Well, in order to avoid the further uncertainties of a possible special session, special shutdown, government shutdown in July, I've agreed to drop my strenuous objections to the way the Legislative Conference Committee massacred the Office of the State Auditor, a constitutional office, for all the reasons that I've stated, as well as the really inexcusable way in which the last 24 hours of the legislative session was conducted. And this is one of the victims of that. I will do everything I can, as I will communicate with the State Auditor. The Lieutenant Governor just spoke with her and expressed my deep regret over what's transpired and my willingness to help in any possible way her seeking legislative or other remedy to correct this injustice. But I'm not going to put at risk any further the jobs of some 9,500 state employees who would be laid off if we don't reach an accord by July 1st of this year, and as well as severe disruption of essential government services. And I learned before I can never match the intransigence of Republican legislators, so I don't need to learn that lesson again. But we'll get this resolved one way or the other in the benefit of the people of Minnesota. It may take a while. And I hope Minnesotans take a look at this as another example of the ideological extremism of our Republicans, of their desire to dismantle public agencies, which is bad enough, but in this case, a constitutional office established by and for the people of Minnesota. However, we'll proceed. There's still, contrary to what the Speaker's letter implied, unresolved issues with the jobs bill, and I vetoed, and I enumerated in that letter what the main ones are. We have to get that resolved, get the language from the revisor statutes, and allow an appropriate time for legislators to review that before I would consider calling a special session. We also need to have the 4 caucus leaders and myself agree to the parameters of that special session, which, if these matters proceed as they should, could be held later this week. And in a one-day session with the limits on what can be proposed, debated, a chance to correct this and some other failings in the legislation to date, a couple of which I've also enumerated in this letter, and still get it enacted and signed by the end of this week. Well, I won some and I lost some, and particularly when the point where leaders of both sides, the House and Senate, conspire against me. It's hard. I can't track everything that's said there and goes on there, and when some of it isn't even disclosed to me or to anybody else until after the deeds have been done. As I rolled, I think I was circumvented, certainly, but there were very important improvements in those bills. In education, the amount of money, even though they would not exceed to where I wanted to spend it for early education, the fact it's about $105 million for early learning scholarships is still, in 2011, we got $4 million for that purpose. So I'd say we've come a long way, and I consider that to be a success. I've always said I was for early learning additional funding, and we got more than I think anybody imagined at the beginning of the session. The buffer bill was called dead on arrival from the day it arrived, and we got that included, and we worked cooperatively on things like avian influenza and the additional funding under short notice that was required there. It's in I can't look back on a legislative session where I got, even as governor, got everything I wanted, and where I didn't lose some things that I did want. And it should have been better, could have been better if the process had been better, but those are the chances you take when you're put in the situation I'm in and the spotlight on, and I accept the verdicts. The environment aspects of the Agriculture and Environmental Protection Bill, where protection wouldn't even be a word be included the way it started out, with where it came to me in conference after the conference committee, where polluters were given perpetual amnesty for their polluting activities, and some cities who were providing substandard water now to their constituents are going to be given another 15 years to make that correction, where the Pollution Control Agency was being required to notify polluters 3 weeks in advance of their enforcement orders and not allowed to notify the public or anyone else. Some of the most egregious of those measures in the conference report that we either changed significantly or excluded The loss of the Citizens Board is another, very big disappointment, but one we can come back in future years and try to restore. So, somebody can make a scorecard and keep a scorecard, and as I say, that's been my experience the way it turns out. And some people will say we did well, some people will say we did badly, and that's for everybody to judge according to their own priorities.
Governor, talk about what you mean by temporarily suspending your efforts to resolve the auditor dispute.
Well, I'm going to go back next session. Probably not much hope for any improvement there, given the makeup of the legislature. But I'm going to take this around the state. Take the people of Minnesota say this. First of all, what was done was wrong, and secondly, the way it was done was terribly wrong. And it should be one item on somebody's, I would say, at least on my scorecard, as I assess the performance and the malfeasance of the legislature in this last session. And whether there are other avenues, some have stated their belief that this violates the constitutional separation of the executive branch and legislature, goes close, probably not exactly like what was done by the legislature to the state treasurer back in the 80s, and which was overturned, at least in part, by the Minnesota Supreme Court. Whether that's an option or not, I haven't looked into it to see. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not in a position to judge that. And then in 2017, this is a state office and this is a state government press conference, so I'll limit my remarks there, but hopefully a more enlightened legislature will come to a more enlightened conclusion about the importance of the state auditor and the importance of the legislative branch respecting the responsibilities in the Constitution for those offices. I can't match the intransigence of Republican legislators. I learned that in 2011. I offered in this case last Thursday night what I thought was a very fair compromise, where we delay implementation of it by the counties for 1 year. All the language remained the same, and it was flat out rejected. And the speaker, I'm told this morning, said it wasn't going to be changed, period. And so then we go to 3 weeks from now, we're up to the brink of another shutdown, and we go, if we went past July 1st, an actual shutdown and all the catastrophic consequences of that. And in 2011 they showed they didn't care, but the people of Minnesota showed a year and a half later that they cared. So the Republicans in the control of the House, we're going to have to accept and explain the consequences of what they pulled off here in the dead of night, and with some, I don't know the reports exactly, but evidently with collaboration of some key Senate leaders as well. And I think it's shameful what was done, the way, backhanded way in which it was done, and the fact that they think they have that prerogative to come in and strip a constitutional office of its primary responsibilities. And I'll take that case as strongly as I can for as long as I'm in position to do so.